Hello everyone, I'm a part-time or flexible worker. I thought I'd put together this video, which is my top 10 tips of things that people can do in an office to really support someone who's working flexibly. Let's get going. Hello again. As I mentioned, I'm a part-time worker, so someone that works part-time or flexible time is simply someone who doesn't work the standard hours in an office. So for the purpose of this video, I'll assume that the kind of 9 to 5 days a week is the usual office hours. For example, I used to work 5 days a week until I had my first kid about 4 years ago. And since then, I've dropped my hours, so I work full days, but I only actually do 3 days. The other couple of days, I do full-time childcare. In the last 4 years, I've definitely found a lot of things that my team can do that can really help me work productively and be more inclusive. In this video, I'd like to summarise my top 10 list of things. Now, I've broken them down to 3 different sections, so I'll cover them sequentially. And if we just get started on my first one. So my first section is don't leave them out. Now, of course, this can come in many different forms, but I've identified 3 main things that really can make a difference. So the first thing is record. Especially in the times we're in at the moment, which is COVID, we've got a lot of remote working, a lot of people not going in, and hence a lot of online meetings. I don't work Thursday or Fridays. If whoever's chairing the meeting just remembers just to click record and then sends me a link afterwards, that could be really helpful, because when I get back on work on Monday, I can review the meeting, maybe skip through if there's a quick summary, look at that. But it really means that if you have someone who is working part-time, you can keep them up to date on any major developments. Following along with that, by point number 2 is update. If there's a significant thing that happens, either that strategic direction that has been announced, or some personal changes like someone moving teams or leaving teams, or different organisational structure, whatever the reason, just make a note to update whoever's not there if someone's not working that day when they're in the office, to let them know. Or better yet, you can just simply send a Slack message or whatever instant messaging your company uses. So as soon as they log in, they'll see it. My top tip number 3, which is the last in the don't leave them out section, is don't forget the socials. It's easy to remember things like meetings or something that someone might be interested in knowing or vital for them to know. But something like a social is very easy to overlook. A social could be anything, such as going for a team breakfast, or having a coffee meeting, or maybe going to the pub once a week. For whatever it is, always make sure that anyone in the team can go to at least one social. So if you have a conflicting timetable, for example, then consider breaking up your one kind of pub trip or something into 2 smaller coffee meets, or maybe 2 breakfasts or something like that. Just make sure that there's some kind of social that everyone can go to, because if consistently someone can't make the team social every single week, that can really feel like you're being left out, and you don't want any individual member of the team to feel that. So make sure there's always a social for everyone. Well, those are my first 3 tips on the don't leaving people out. Now we'll go on to the second 3 that I've kind of grouped as consider their time. Now this one applies to pretty much everyone. Tip number 4 is, do you really need that meeting? This is something that plagues all organisations, way too many meetings. So for example, for me, if my team made sure all the meetings were on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then that's just going to take up my entire week basically. It's perfectly fine to ask someone, do you think you need to be in this meeting? Now you'll probably find that someone who is working flexibly is a lot more ruthless about the time that they have. So they're more likely to say, I don't think I need to be there, I don't think I can need to contribute, there's nothing that I will gain from that meeting, I would prefer not to go to it, and that's fine. That's very much something that everyone should be doing anyway in our over-meeting society we have at the moment. Now this is a big one. My top tip number 5. I'm sorry, I don't work those hours. It's quite easy for someone to say, oh, it's Thursday, do you mind just sending me this quick email or something? And I say, well, I don't work those hours. For me, Thursday is the weekend. In fact, Thursday, I'm looking after my kids. There's no way I'm going to respond to an email from you. I'm not just going to hop onto work. I'm not just going to finish that piece of work or anything. If there's something that you need doing, you have to wait for me to come back in the office, which is Monday. So remember, even though someone is not working standard hours, if you ask someone to do things on time when they're not working, regardless of what day it is, that's equivalent to asking someone to do something on their weekend. So in summary, even though you may be working, if someone's not being paid for those hours, they are also not working. And point number 6, which is my final point for the considering time element, is things do take longer. If I'm given a piece of work which takes a full-time worker 5 days, so their week, it will take me most part of 2 weeks. Now, that's okay. That's something you should consider when distributing work, or if something's going to hold something up. If you need it done within a week and it will take 5 days worth of work, then consider either pairing with someone else or giving it to someone else. If someone's only being paid for 3 days, don't expect them to be able to do a piece of work that will take them 5 days in a week. That's not reasonable. That's not fair on the person. And it's okay to note that they won't get it done. It's okay to say, okay, let's give you a different piece of work. That is perfectly okay. But if you do expect someone to keep up to the same speed of work as someone else, then that's unfair. Understand that people work the hours they work, and that's how long work will take. Excellent. So that's my second section. So quickly summary, we've done our don't leave them out section, we've done consider the time, and now the third section, which is my last 4 points, is the most important one, and that is don't discriminate. Now you might think, oh, of course I don't discriminate, that's easy, I treat them exactly the same as anyone else. Well, I mean, that probably is true. There's probably not anything you're doing that is intentionally, but don't forget, working part-time, you can have a sort of different mentality about working, and a lot of people don't necessarily understand that. No fault of your own. It's not a very common practice currently, although it's very much on the rise. Point number 6 is be our champions. Now, this is something that if you are someone who's part-time and someone does champion for you, it can really make a difference to you. I know people who champion for me, and it really validates your way of working. And what do I mean by that? So being your champion is, I don't work Thursdays and Fridays. If there's a meeting or some piece of information or some question that's brought up, if someone says, so James doesn't work Thursday, can we reschedule for Monday? That's all it takes. But that is very much identifying my working hours, so validating that, and also, even though I'm not in the office, kind of putting my point forwards. So if you do have someone in your office who is working flexibly, do consider they don't have a voice when they're not in the office. If something does come up, be their champion. So point number 8 is enjoy your 4-day weekend. Yes, my 4-day weekend, 2 of which I'm doing 2 days solid worth of parenting solo, and the other 2 I'm doing shared with my partner. So as any parent I'm sure can relate to, the days you do go into the office can feel very much like a break from your proper work, which is looking after the climbing around, not letting you go to the loo in peace children that you have running around. Obviously love them to bits, but it's not exactly a 4-day holiday. I'm not partying on down on my 4-day weekend. No, I'm doing proper work that should be respected. And obviously people that understand that and say it's a joke, that's absolutely fine. There's certainly a camaraderie with parents and an understanding there. But if you are thinking that I'm going home for my 4-day weekend, I'm slacking off, that's not the case. So just remember, you don't necessarily know why someone is part-time. Don't judge them because of it. They're not any less of a team player. They have other commitments in their life. Understand that they're not leaving their job because they might be going to any kind of other commitments. You just don't know. So point number 9 is check your assumptions. I think I covered this a little bit in the enjoy your 4-day weekend, but the crux of this is don't make assumptions of why someone's part-time working. So I know people ask me a few times, when are you going back full-time? I'm like, as far as I'm aware, I'm not allowed to give my kids back. I think I have them for a little bit longer, so probably not going to be going back to a full-time anytime soon. And that's the thing, people assume that just because you're part-time, that's the state that you'll be temporarily and you want to be full-time. Well, no, I mean, to be honest, if I, for the rest of my life, work 3 days, I would be quite happy with that. I think the current standard ratio of 5 days working and 2 days weekend is very much something that will slowly change, and it will become more accepted to work fewer days. be more flexible and all that kind of thing. But if someone does choose to have reduced hours just because they want to have reduced hours, I would certainly champion that. I think that would be a brilliant situation. I think someone's really prioritising their work-life balance at that point, and that's something that being flexible working allows you to really do, because you can, instead of having your home life around work, you can integrate that a lot better. You can say, well, these are the hours I'm going to work for, these are the hours I'm not going to work for, and you can figure out your home life and work life balance a lot more effectively. So certainly the concept of part-time being a temporary situation, I think, is a very naive view of it. And when part-time becomes more acceptable and more commonplace in the workspace, then I think that would be a big improvement. We flexible workers, we still want promotions, we still want pay rises, we still want all of that kind of thing. Just because we're working part-time does not mean for a second we don't value our careers, our long-term career goals, as well as our short-term. Doesn't mean that we value our work any less. Doesn't mean that we don't want to work. Just because we work less hours does not mean we are any less dedicated to the company. In fact, there is definitely a lot of people that view people who do work flexibly as not committed to companies and letting the team down and stuff. And I think I've looked up statistics, and there's quite shocking views on that, in fact. And that's just simply not the case. I very much value my work. I very much want to contribute as much as I can to the team. So if you ever look at someone who's working part-time and think they don't value their career, I think the fact they're working part-time is not an indicator of that. People value their career more or less, but I don't think working flexibly is any relation to that. In fact, prioritising your home life and your career is, I think, a very healthy thing to do, and does not mean you are taking away from one or the other. In fact, you're trying to work both to the best you possibly can. Don't ever look at someone who's working flexibly and think they are less worthy of being a worker and they are not looking for promotions and all that kind of thing. So point number 10 is, we still want promotions. Do not leave us out. Do not discriminate against people who are working part-time, as that's not very nice. Well, I think that's my top 10 list. I might just throw something up, just a quick summary or something. But thank you guys for watching this far. I hope that some of it might be useful if you are working part-time yourself, and maybe share it with your team. If you think you're going part-time, then I would certainly recommend it. I hope anyone who is working flexibly out there does have supported colleagues, and you support them as well in the understanding that it is different. Let's spread the word to make it a bit more commonplace. I'm very much looking to do a part 2 of this video, which will be from the flexible workers perspective, because I know there's a lot of things that I do to really help my team, because it isn't standard, and there are things that you need to take into account as a flexible worker when working with people and your colleagues who are full-time. So check that when that comes out. I don't know when it will be, but hopefully fairly soon. Well, thank you everyone who's listened with me so far. This is actually my first YouTube video. In this channel, I'm very much looking to promote things like part-time, flexible time, mental health, all that kind of good stuff, work-life balance. And if you're interested in that kind of side of things, then please subscribe and all the usual YouTube things. But thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you next time.